Hey guys, my name is Rob, and today we're reviewing the Scuf Envision Pro V2. The main or possibly only difference in the V2 is that it's equipped with Hall effect sticks, but the one I have here is also the new Scump collaboration design, which honestly I just bought because I wanted it, sort of my way of celebrating Optic winning back-to-back CDL Championships. And if you don't follow Call of Duty Comp and have no idea what I'm talking about, my apologies. Regardless, I'm excited about it, so let's open this thing up and check it out. The box is beautiful. One thing Scuf has always been good at is presentation, and we definitely see that here. When we open the lid, we have a warning to download the software before doing anything else. And I'm sure we'll discuss the iCue software plenty in this video, as it was pretty much the biggest flaw with the previous version of the Envision Pro. For now, we're just going to get this warning out of the way, along with its foam stick protector. We'll set the controller aside and see what else is in the box first. We have the 2.4 GHz wireless dongle. Then under this insert, we have a couple of accessory boxes. The small box contains block-off plates, and there are two different sets of plates here. One set is to block off the two inner back buttons, and the other set is for the sax buttons, which are the buttons on the side of the upper part of the grips. We'll go over how to install both in just a bit. The larger box has a couple of extra thumbsticks, which unfortunately are just black and don't match the color scheme of the controller. Then we have the USB cable, which is a thick braided cable, and it is USB-A to USB-C, but also comes with an attached A to C adapter. This box also has a plastic pry tool, which is used for changing out the removable rear buttons. Lastly, we have a safety and warranty info pamphlet, which is the only paperwork included, so no manual in the box. Then finally, we have the gamepad, which in my opinion looks sick. I know it's probably not for everyone, but I love this color scheme, and I think the artwork is really cool, from the lion in the center to the Scump logo on the left grip. Just overall, I think it's a beautiful controller, and I'm glad I talked myself into picking it up. As far as features, we do have mechanical face buttons, which is my preference. They feel and sound good, and the only thing I really don't like about them is the size. The buttons are smaller than on a standard first-party controller, such as a PlayStation or Xbox controller, which is just kind of weird. I'm not sure why they went this route. It's not a deal breaker or anything, just an odd design choice. The D-pad is also mechanical, and I do like the concave design with the raised points. It's a little different, and like the face buttons, it's a bit smaller, but it feels very good to me, so no complaints on that. Next, we got the sticks, which as mentioned earlier are Hall effect, and are the reason Scuf is calling this the Envision Pro V2. One of the main concerns I had about investing in the original Envision Pro was the potentiometer thumbsticks. Because let's face it, this is not a cheap controller, and it's a terrible feeling to drop the money on a Pro controller and then develop stick drift a few months later. I'm really glad to see this change on the Envision Pro, and looking forward to testing these out. Other front inputs include the Start or Power button, the Menu button, the View button, and the Profile button. Then along the bottom of the front shell, we have the G keys, G1 through 5, and these are 5 of the 11 programmable buttons on the Envision Pro. The placement of these isn't necessarily convenient for in-game actions, and by default, G1 through 4 are programmed as audio controls, and G5 enables and disables eco mode. But they can be mapped to virtually anything, including controller inputs, keyboard and mouse inputs, and even launching programs using the iCue software. You'll also notice we do have a 3.5mm audio jack on the bottom as well. Then on top we have the shoulder buttons, which again the design is a little bit odd, just the way they narrow toward the inner edge of the controller, but they are easy to actuate anywhere, and feel and sound good. I do wish they had a little bit of texture though, instead of just being smooth and slick across the entire surface. This is true of the triggers as well. They have no stippling, they're just smooth, but they do feel good, and more importantly the Envision Pro has trigger stops, and these are mechanical mouse click triggers, which I absolutely love. These are very much instant triggers, cutting out just about all of the travel distance. We also have 4 back buttons, and I absolutely love the design of these with the 2 inside and 2 outside buttons, so you can easily operate both with one finger, which is my preference as far as back button layouts. This design by Scuf, which is very similar to the Valor Pro, is honestly probably my favorite back button design right now. It's ironic considering for years Scuf's back button layout was absolutely terrible. Then we have a 2-position mode switch, so the left position is for USB wired mode, and the right position is for 2.4 GHz wireless. Lastly, for inputs, we have the sax buttons, which are these buttons on either side of the controller. This is a very interesting idea, having these additional inputs that you can actuate with your trigger finger without actually moving off of the trigger. And I'm really surprised other companies haven't tried something like this. We do see a lot of extra shoulder buttons on the top these days, but this is the only controller with these extra inputs on the side. To be clear, in my prior experience with the Envision Pro, I did have some issues with the placement and practicality of these buttons, but I do have some thoughts on how to fix that, and we'll get into that later in the video. I also just want to point out that we do have the typical Scuf style rubberized grips, and these are great. The grip material feels very high quality and just super comfortable, And of all the controllers I've tested, nothing else really feels like a Scuf in this regard. Next, we'll look at customization, starting with the thumbsticks. The faceplate is attached magnetically, so it just pulls off. And once removed, the thumbsticks also pull off, and you can easily install the alternate thumbsticks that are included. I actually really like these taller convex sticks, but really hate that they don't match the controller. And it was the same way with my prior Envision Pro, as I had the gray and white one, and it came with the same black alternate sticks. Since these don't match the controller, I'd like to instead use the default sticks and just install some control freaks, but unfortunately because of how short the default sticks are and just the way they're made, control freaks don't really work. The PlayStation models do fit, but the plastic clips of the freaks will actually rub the faceplate, which one will likely affect gameplay in some situations, and two will almost certainly damage the faceplate over time. I've also tried using rubber thumbstick caps such as the Skull & Company CQC grips, but these are even worse and will rub constantly. This creates a bit of an issue, at least for me, because I'm not happy with just the short default sticks. And I mean, obviously I can use the black ones instead and just kind of let go of the fact that they don't look great on this controller, but even then, those sticks are also incompatible with control freaks, just due to the way they're made. When I tested the Envision Pro the first time, I did try swapping these out with sticks from other controllers, but unfortunately none of the many options I had on hand at the time were compatible. The sticks on the Pro were just made slightly different, and whatever sticks I tried rubbed against the faceplate and wouldn't work at all. So even though I didn't really expect a different result this time since I tried so many sticks previously, I did try bases from all the gamepads I currently have on hand, and to my surprise discovered that the sticks from MobiPads Human 2 actually fit. They don't rub against the faceplate, and they add enough height that I can use the control freaks with no issues. Now obviously this is quite the workaround because this is literally the only controller I've found that has sticks that will work, so I'm not suggesting that this is a viable solution for anyone else out there who had the same issue with the Envision Pro, but this is for sure the way I'll be running the gamepad for now. Next, we'll look at how to install the block-off plates, starting with the sax buttons, and these are super easy. With the faceplate off, you can just pull the button off from the top front. Then the block-off plate will clip into place. And when you reinstall the faceplate, that block plate is flush with the shell and not clickable, so just eliminates those buttons completely if you'd rather not have them. The two inside back buttons are also simple, just slightly different. As you can see, there's a notch where you can insert the included pry tool, pry the button up, and then you can just lift it out. The block-off plate will easily clip into place, and then just as with the sax buttons, this will be pretty much flush with the shell and not clickable. So if you'd prefer to only have two rear buttons, it's that simple. Besides these physical modifications, there isn't much customization that can be done on the fly, but there are a couple of things. First, once you turn the gamepad on, you can cycle between three different onboard profiles by pressing the profile button. These profiles are designated by colors, so you have blue, red, and green. Then also you can program the back buttons and sax buttons by holding down the profile button for 3 seconds to enter programming mode. The indicator light will flash while in this mode, and then simultaneously press a back or sax button and the button you want to map to it. The gamepad stays in programming mode, so you can map however many of these additional buttons you want, then just press the profile button again to save. Unfortunately, you can't do this with the G keys. They aren't compatible with onboard profile mapping, so can only be customized in conjunction with the controller software, which we'll take a look at now. So this is Corsair's iCue software, which serves several functions really. It's a system monitoring and customization tool, but is also used as customization software for some devices, including the Envision Pro. If you've never used it before, it can be a bit confusing, particularly just because there's so much stuff here that has nothing to do with customization of the controller, but we're going to basically ignore all of that for now. Obviously, the controller customization is in the center here, and in the top right corner of that box it shows the connection mode and charging status, and then if you click on the gear icon you'll find the general settings. Here you can adjust the brightness of the RGB lighting, turn auto shut-off on and off, as well as adjust the time frame for auto shut-off. You can also enable and disable eco mode, which essentially just shuts off the RGB lighting completely. My wireless dongle was paired out of the box, but if you need to repair the dongle you can do that here as well. From here you can also look at the software settings, but I'm not going to go through all of these as it's just not relevant to customization of the controller itself. Then as far as the customization tabs, the first one is for lighting effects, and the only real customization is turning murals on and off, and if I'm being honest, I still don't really understand exactly how this portion works, nor do I really care. I picked a mural that sort of matches the color scheme of the controller, and now I'm just going to move on with my life and never look at this page again. The second tab is for mappings, and to be frank, there's a whole lot of options here as far as what you can do, but it's somewhat spoiled by the fact that this is the least user-friendly controller mapping software I've ever seen, and that is not hyperbole. I reviewed ZD's O Plus Excellence controller before they even had an English version of the mobile app, which means I had to set everything up on a mobile phone app and decipher images of each page of that app using Google Translate, and that was still easier than using iCue. But again, once you realize how it works, it does have a ton of options. You can remap all inputs except for the ones that are grayed out here, so the A and B buttons, the menu and view buttons, the power button, and the profile button. For everything else, you can assign keyboard mappings, gamepad inputs, and even launch programs, as well as just completely disable the inputs. And there are sort of multiple ways to set the bindings. You can right-click on any input and select what you're wanting to map there, and when you select what you're looking for, it creates a custom mapping and pulls up this page. If you've already created a custom mapping for the button you want to assign, you can also just drag and drop it onto the button where you want it to be. You can rename all these custom mappings as well so that you know specifically what they are. The next tab is for thumbstick settings, which are much more straightforward. You can adjust the min and max dead zone settings, as well as the thumbstick response curves, and there are several to choose from here, including a customizable option, as well as presets for different types of games that you can play around with. The next tab is for triggers, and it's set up in the same way. There are a few preset profiles, but you can also customize the trigger dead zones and response curves, though obviously if you're using the trigger stops, none of this is really relevant, since the triggers will register as on-off switches when pressed. Then we have vibration settings. Again, there are some preset configurations, but you can also customize the left and right stick vibration, and you can choose to have the two rumble modes synced up or independent of each other. Then lastly, we have the calibration tab. If you run the calibration wizard, the app walks you all the way through the calibration process, and this is a bit more involved than you typically see with controller calibration, specifically for the sticks. The triggers are pretty standard other than you calibrate them one at a time, but you do just fully depress and release each trigger 3 times, and the app will direct you to move on once this step has been completed. The thumbsticks are a whole process. First, it calibrates the resting position by asking you to move the stick to the full range in one direction, and then slowly move it back to center, and then wait a couple of seconds till the app directs you to proceed to the next direction. Then you repeat this process for each of the 4 cardinal directions. You'll do this full process for each stick, and once done, it moves on to the circularity calibration. For each stick, you'll make 3 full rotations clockwise, and then 3 rotations counterclockwise. The only other important setting in the app is the device memory mode, which you can turn on in order to customize the 3 onboard profiles. This gives you access to the same customization options, so mappings, thumbsticks, triggers, and vibration, but the one big difference is with mapping. In device memory mode, you can only reprogram the 4 back buttons and the 2 sax buttons, and you're limited to gamepad inputs in this mode. You might be asking why you'd bother to use this mode since it's so limited, and the answer is because the iCue profile settings are only active when the app is running, meaning you can't close out of the app while playing or you'll lose all of these settings, unless you're playing in device memory mode. When I did my original review of the Envision Pro, my overall conclusion was that iCue basically ruined the controller, but that was largely based on the fact that the software had severe connectivity issues. It would frequently crash or just disconnect from the controller, and I had to uninstall and reinstall multiple times just during the testing phase. And of all the hours I used that gamepad, I'm not sure I ever ran it for a full gaming session without having issues. Thankfully, that has not been the case this time. I've been using this controller daily for the better part of 2 weeks, sometimes for several hours straight, and I've yet to have a single disconnect or crash. I assume this has little or nothing to do with the controller being updated, but likely it's about the app stability being addressed sometime since I made that review. Regardless of the reason, it's had a major impact on my experience with the Envision Pro this time around. So as I said earlier, iCue is not user-friendly at all, and that's very frustrating, but it does at least work now and has a ton of customization. Moving on to testing, we'll start with polling rate, and I knew what to expect here. I didn't really anticipate anything changing on that front. The polling rate cap, both wired and wireless, is 500 Hz, and I got between 470 and 480 for both on multiple tests. I know there are videos on YouTube stating the controller can be overclocked to 1000 Hz, but this is not true. The Envision Pro is not susceptible to overclocking, at least not with Lord of Mice, which is what I tried. As far as resolution, I ran Stick Analyzer a few times, and all of my results were between 1064 and 1081, so I'm assuming the true resolution is 1096. Looking at Gamepad Tester, you can see that the sticks aren't consistently bouncing back to a perfect resting point of 0.00002, but they are very close, and I have no stick drift in game. I forgot to point this out during the app overview, but we have no option to change the circularity algorithm, so we just have a rectangular input. That said, the shading looks very good, very even across the board, so no concerns for me. So conclusions. Overall, just having functional software really changed my experience with the Envision Pro, specifically because I typically take advantage of keyboard mapping whenever it's available on a controller. And with the V1 I tried previously, it was almost impossible to do so because iCue was so uncooperative. Since the controller actually worked the way it should this time, I was more able to really take in the features of the Envision Pro 2, and it's a really interesting gamepad. I appreciate the 11 additional programmable buttons, including the G keys for what they are. The rear buttons, as I've already said, are very well done, as well as the sax buttons, which were a really unique idea, but there is a caveat with those. I had concerns about getting unintentional inputs with these, and that did turn out to be the case for me, and unfortunately not something I was able to adjust to over time and correct based on the way I was holding the controller. I assume this wouldn't be an issue for everyone because again it depends on how you hold the controller and everyone's different, but for me it was enough of an issue that I felt compelled to try and work out a solution, especially since I really like the overall feel of the controller. Of course, the easy solution is installing these block-off plates and just eliminating the sax buttons entirely, but I really didn't want to do that because again, I do think they're a great idea on paper. You could also just remove the buttons and use it like this, and you can actuate the switches this way, but it takes a bit of pressure or squeezing if holding the controller normally, so not a perfect solution by any means. Instead, I actually modified these block-off plates so that they're actually flat buttons that sit flush with the shell, but are still actionable. This was very simple to do. I literally just cut off the long clip that clearly was blocking the activation of the switch, but obviously it's not reversible without buying new plates, so do keep that in mind. This 100% solved the issue for me, as these buttons are still very easy to actuate, but I no longer unintentionally hit them, like ever. I'm really glad I did this because I loved using these inputs now that I'm only pressing them when I actually mean to. I'm also happy with the move to Hall Effect thumbsticks, and for my purposes I think these sticks feel very good. I know there are a lot of people that aren't very happy that Scuf went with an older model of HE sticks, the JH13s, but I'm okay with it, particularly because they tend to have a bit higher tension than some other HE modules. By my measurements, the Envision Pro V2 sticks are coming in at about 63 GF, whereas the GameStar G7 SE is registering 48 just for comparison. I also do like the feel of the Envision Pro, though I will say it takes a bit of getting used to. I know the form factor kind of makes it look more similar to a DualSense controller, but it actually feels a bit more like a DualShock or a PS4 controller. Not exactly the same, obviously, but I do think it's a comfortable controller, and performance-wise, the more I use it and get used to it, the more I like it. Is it overpriced? Absolutely it is. But I have no regrets about picking it up, particularly since I went with the Scump edition. I know that even when I inevitably move on to another controller, I'll appreciate having this one included in my display. I hope this video helped you out, and if so, please subscribe if you haven't already. Likes are also appreciated, and I do try to react and respond to as many comments as possible. I'll be doing more reviews regularly, so I hope to see you back here again soon. Thanks for watching.